Hello students, today we discuss functions in Python. Functions are used to utilize the strategy of divide and conquer in programming. A program may be written to achieve a complex and big goal, and functions help us divide that program into smaller uh, subtasks which are easy to manage one at a time. For example, consider three friends who have to organize a small party for their guests. What they do is to divide that complete task into three smaller subtasks, and each of them takes the responsibility for one of the subtasks. For person one takes the responsibility of purchasing the goods from the grocery from the market. The second person takes the responsibility of cooking the food, and the third person takes the responsibility of serving the cooked food to the guest. In this way, they have divided a bigger task into three smaller tasks, which they individually can carry on, can carry out with ease. Consider another example. Suppose a program has to find the area of different geometrical figures like a circle, square, rectangle, etc. Now, instead of writing all the code at one place in the main program to calculate the areas of different figures, it will be much better to divide the program into a number of functions, and each function uh, be calculating the area of a single figure only. For example, one function may be written to calculate the area of a circle, and another one to calculate the area of a square, and so on. Look at this example program, a simple example program which is having a function by name sum underscore 2. What this function does is very simple to guess. It takes two numbers x and y, and finds their sum, stores it in a variable by the name sum, and returns this sum. Now, it is easy to understand that this function is taking two numbers and returning their sum. Okay, and the main program is first creating two variables a and b with values 5 and 10 respectively. Then it is using the function sum underscore 2 with these two variables and finding their sum to store it in a variable by name total. Then finally it prints this total. So this is the first example of a function being used in a program. So there are a few points which you should note and remember about functions. A function is a small program in itself. For example, that means anything which you can do in a program, you can do in a function also. For example, creating variables, or printing values, or taking input from user, or anything which you do in a program can also be done in a function. Then functions are of two types. First is the built-in functions. The built-in functions are the standard library functions provided by Python, which are ready to use by the programmers. For example, the len function, which is used to find the length of strings, lists, and other data structures, and the print function, which is used to print values on monitor, and the input function, which is used to accept input from the user. There are many other built-in functions which we use regularly in our programs. Then the second category is the functions may be written by the programmer himself also, and used in one or more programs. Actually, this is the biggest advantage of functions, that a function may be reused in any number of programs. In this way, the effort that is put into writing one function need not be repeated for every program. Okay, so that is the biggest advantage of using functions. A very commonly used function is the length function. Now, another thing is that functions typically take one or more input data to process upon. Again, the example comes of the length function, which takes a string, for example, as an input and finds its length. So the string works as an input data for length function. And similarly, often functions return some data as output. Again, the length function will serve as an example here. It returns the length of a string. It is supplied with as input, as output of the function. The input data provided to the function for processing are known as arguments or parameters. Now, it is not always necessary for a function to take arguments or produce any return value. In fact, it may be that a function does not take any argument and it may still produce some return value, or it may take some arguments and not return any value. It may do anything. Now, for this, see this simple example which uses a simple function named say underscore hello. What this function does is simply print a hello message, and in the main program we have only one statement which calls this function, and the output of the program is obvious. It just prints hello on the message. So in this program, the function say hello does not take any input data or arguments and does not produce any return value. Now, another important thing about functions you should understand is that if function, although it is written in the main program, it may be written before the statements of the main program, but it is not executed until it is called by the main program or any other function. See, the definition of the function consists of the statements of the function and the list of arguments and the name of the function, but all this is just kept passively in memory. That is, no execution takes place until the main program calls that function, or some other function calls that function. So keep in mind that the function definition in itself does not do anything. Now we discuss how to write a function. For this we discuss the same example just discussed. The function name is sum underscore 2. It is taking two input data in the form of two variables x and y, and it has two statements. First statement is sum is equal to x plus y, and the second is return sum. Now notice some things very carefully about how to write this function. The first thing is the def keyword, and the def keyword is a syntactic requirement of Python. When you are writing a function, your function definition must begin with this keyword, then followed by the def keyword is followed by the name of the function. Now the name of a function is just like a name of a variable, and the same rules as are followed when writing names of variables are to be followed when writing names for a function. Followed by the name is the pair of left and right parentheses. Inside the parentheses, any input arguments to the function are mentioned. That is to say, input argument variables are written separated from each other with commas. A comma is again important. It is required to separate the argument variables in the function definition. And finally, the colon, which is at the end of the line containing the def keyword, is also a syntactic requirement. Now after the colon, we see the statements of the function. For instance, in this program for the sum2 function, there are two statements: sum is equal to x plus y and return sum. These statements are called the body of the function, and the line containing the def keyword and the name of the function is called the header of the function. Next, we consider the role of indentation in function definition. Look closely that the two statements in the function body are written at an indentation level higher than the one where the def keyword is written. This is absolutely necessary because only through this indentation level difference the Python is able to decide which statements are part of the function definition and which are not part of this function. For example, the statement a is equal to 5 is starting at the same indentation level as the def keyword, so it is considered not a part of the function, whereas the two statements sum and return which are written leaving some space before them as compared to the def keyword are considered to be the part of the function. And then the next thing comes is the argument passing. When we call a function, for example, in this program, in the third line, we are calling the function sum underscore 2 followed by a pair of parentheses, and inside the parentheses we have written a comma b. Now what is happening here, that the value of the variable a, which is 5, is being copied in the variable x, in the argument variable x, and similarly the value of the variable b, which is 10, is being copied in the argument variable y. So this is very important. This is how the values are passed to a function for processing. Then the next thing is that the return values, for example, the sum variable which is being returned by the function here may be assigned to a variable, as in this program itself it is being assigned to a variable by name total, or it may be directly printed without assigning to any variable, or it in fact it may be used anyway, that a normal variable or literal data may be used. Now consider another example with functions. Here we have a function by name smaller, and it is taking two argument variables n and m. What this function does is very easy to guess. It compares n with m, and if n happens to be less than m, it is returning n because it is supposed to return the smaller of two numbers, and otherwise it returns m. In the main program, we are taking input 4 numbers and storing them a, b, x and y, and in the final line of the program we are writing the print statement, and inside the parentheses of the print statement we are calling the smaller function 2 times. First it is being called with values a and b, and the second time it is being called with values x and y. Now what this function is trying to do is that it is trying to find the smaller of the two variables a and b, and the smaller of the two variables x and y, and it is printing the sum of these two smaller quantities. So as we can see in this example, the same function may be used multiple times, and it shows the reusability of functions. It saves us a lot of time because we don't have to write the same function again and again, and it leads to fewer errors in the program, which saves time in debugging. Thank you.